Camping is a great way to unplug and soak in the beauty of nature, but it's not always just s'mores and starry skies. Sometimes the wilderness holds secrets far darker than bad weather or wild animals. In this video, we'll explore 5 chilling cases of campers who vanished without a trace, leaving only questions behind. It was June 14th, 1969, a perfect summer day for an escape into nature. The Martin family, his wife and their 2 sons, Dennis and his older brother, had set out for a weekend camping trip in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. They were looking for peace, a break from city life, and a chance to just breathe under the open sky. They pitched their tents at Spence Field, a serene spot surrounded by lush greenery and rolling hills. Laughter echoed through the campsite as the boys ran around, enjoying the fresh mountain air. Everything seemed perfect. That afternoon, Dennis and his brother were invited to play hide-and-seek with 2 other boys nearby. It started out as just a simple, innocent game, nothing out of the ordinary. The boys hatched a little plan to sneak up and surprise the adults. William Martin watched with a smile as the kids disappeared into the woods, Dennis easily spotted in his bright red shirt. But when the boys came running back, giggling out of breath, Dennis wasn't with them. At first, there wasn't panic. Maybe he was hiding a little too well. Maybe he just got turned around. But when minutes turned into an hour, concern quickly shifted to fear. William called out for Dennis again and again, but there was only silence from the trees. Meanwhile, around 7 miles away, a man named Harold Key and his family were hiking near Rowan's Creek. Their peaceful walk was shattered when they heard a loud, chilling scream from the forest. Moments later, they spotted a rough-looking man darting between the trees. It gave them an eerie feeling, though they had no idea yet that a child had just gone missing. Back at Spence Field, as the sun dipped below the treetops, the search for Dennis ramped up. Park rangers and volunteers joined the desperate parents, combing the woods with flashlights and calling his name into the darkness. A storm rolled in that night, drenching the mountains with rain, washing away potential clues and making the already rugged terrain even more treacherous. By dawn on June 15th, the search was in full swing. Volunteers, rangers, Boy Scouts, even park ranger trainees, over 240 people scattered through the dense forest, determined to find any sign of Dennis. But the forest gave up nothing. Days turned into weeks. Hope began to fade, replaced by anguish and questions. 3 main theories emerged. The first, that Dennis simply got lost and succumbed to the elements. The second, that he had been attacked by a wild animal, perhaps a bear or even a boar. And the third, most haunting of all, that he had been abducted. Dennis's father believed in that last theory. He was especially troubled by the scream and strange man reported by Harold Key. But despite the FBI's involvement and countless hours of searching, no concrete link was ever made. Even years later, there were strange twists. In 1985, a ginseng hunter claimed he'd found a child's skeletal remains just 3 miles from where Dennis disappeared. But despite an extensive search, nothing was recovered. To this day, Dennis Martin's disappearance remains one of the most haunting, unsolved mysteries in U.S. National Park history. No trace of him has ever been found. In the summer of 2015, what should have been a peaceful camping trip in the Idaho wilderness turned into one of the most baffling missing persons cases in recent memory. The Kunz family, Vernal, Jessica Mitchell, and their bright-eyed 2-year-old son, Dior Kunz Jr., set out for Timber Creek Campground near the remote town of Lador. It was supposed to be a relaxing getaway, a chance to disconnect and spend time in nature. But instead, it became a heartbreaking mystery that still haunts investigators and true crime followers today. Joining them on the trip were Jessica's grandfather, Bob Walton, and a man named Isaac Reinwand, a quiet and somewhat mysterious figure whose role in the trip has long been questioned. The group made their way to the campground on July 9th. It was already getting dark when they arrived. After a quick stop at a gas station and a convenience store, they reached Timber Creek and settled in for the night. Little Dior helped his parents set up the campsite and build a fire before everyone turned in. The next morning seemed normal, quiet, and uneventful. The group enjoyed a slow start to the day, soaking in the mountain air. At one point, Jessica reportedly asked her grandfather to keep an eye on little Dior while she and Vernal went exploring with Isaac. It was around 2 p.m. when the couple, who had been out fishing, suddenly realized Dior was nowhere to be seen. Panic set in instantly. The campers began frantically searching the area, calling out his name, hoping he'd just wandered off nearby, but there was no sign of the toddler. Vernal dialed 911 at 2:22 p.m., followed by Jessica a few minutes later. Authorities were notified, and by around 3:45 p.m., search and rescue teams had arrived at the campsite. For 2 straight weeks, rescue efforts were relentless. Searchers used helicopters, horses, drones, K-9 units, and even ATVs to scour the rugged terrain. But not a single trace of Dior was found. Not a shoe, not a footprint, not a shred of clothing. It was as if the child had simply vanished into thin air. Then came a stunning twist. In January 2016, the Lemhi County Sheriff's Office publicly named both Vernal and Jessica as suspects in their son's disappearance. The announcement came after investigators found troubling inconsistencies in their statements. Private investigator Philip Klein, who had been hired by the family, revealed that both parents had failed multiple polygraph tests, 5 failures for Vernal, 4 for Jessica. Klein went further, stating he believed Dior was the victim of foul play, possibly accidental, possibly not. He even accused Jessica of withholding crucial information that could have helped solve the case. Suspicion deepened in 2016 when the couple was evicted for not paying rent. In the abandoned property, investigators reportedly found some of Dior's belongings, including a camouflage jacket he was believed to have been wearing when he disappeared. Despite all of this, no arrests have ever been made. The case remains officially unsolved. Vernal and Jessica separated later that year, and Jessica has since remarried. Both continue to deny any involvement in their son's disappearance and maintain that they have no idea what happened to him. As of today, Dior Kunz Jr. is still missing. No answers, no closure, just a heart-wrenching mystery that refuses to let go. Labor Day weekend in 1975 was meant to be just another peaceful family getaway for the Newtons from Manchester, Maine. They had chosen Natanis Point Campground, a secluded, wooded spot near the Canadian border, for some quality time in nature. No one could have imagined that this quiet trip would trigger one of the largest search efforts in Maine's history. On the morning of September 1st, Ron Newton hopped into his pickup truck and headed out to gather firewood, driving along a dirt road that branched away from the campsite. His 4-year-old son, Kurt, didn't want to be left behind. In a sweet but fateful moment, Kurt grabbed his red tricycle and began pedaling after his father. It wasn't long before the truck disappeared from view, but Kurt kept going, determined to catch up. A nearby camper, 13-year-old Lou Ellen Hansen, noticed the little boy furiously pedaling and called out to him, but he kept moving up the road. Not long after, Lou Ellen's father, Jack Hansen, the campground's caretaker, drove down that same road. He saw an abandoned tricycle near the campground dump, assumed it had been tossed away, and threw it on top of the garbage heap. Meanwhile, back at the campsite, Kurt's mother, Jill, was cleaning mud off her son's sneakers. She looked up and realized she hadn't seen him for a while. She began asking nearby campers if they'd seen her little boy on his trike. Then Ron returned, but he hadn't had Kurt with him at all. Panic took hold. When the couple ran into Jack Hansen and asked if he'd seen Kurt or the red tricycle, his response sent a chill down their spines. Yes, he'd seen the trike, but not Kurt. He led them to the dump, and there it was, carelessly tossed on top of the trash. But there was no sign of the child. That was the moment everything changed. The search for Kurt began immediately. Fellow campers joined the Newtons in scouring the woods. It didn't take long for the situation to escalate into the largest organized search Maine had ever seen. A helicopter with a loudspeaker was deployed to fly over the forest, calling out Kurt's name. Jill, desperate for more help, overheard volunteers mentioning aircraft used in Vietnam that could detect body heat. She requested one, and authorities quickly arranged for a heat-sensing plane to be flown in from Florida. Search teams combed the woods using ATVs, dogs, and boats. Jill and friends even explored a large hole in the ground they thought might be a hiding place. They dug and searched. Nothing. Days turned into nearly 2 weeks. By September 12th, after more than 3,000 volunteers had scoured the dense forest, the official search was called off. Not a single trace of Kurt was found. Theories began to swirl. Authorities suspected that Kurt had tried to find his way back to camp, wandered off the wrong way, and got lost in the thick woods. With nighttime temperatures dipping below freezing, they feared he may not have survived. But his parents weren't convinced. They believed their son may have been abducted, possibly even taken across the nearby Canadian border into Quebec. They printed missing posters in French and spread them across Quebec, clinging to hope that someone, somewhere, might have seen him. But no leads ever came. To this day, the disappearance of Kurt Newton, the cheerful blonde-haired boy on a red tricycle, remains one of Maine's most chilling and unsolved mysteries. On August 20th, 2004, what began as a routine camping trip quickly unraveled into one of Utah's most haunting mysteries. Garrett Bailey, a 12-year-old Boy Scout, vanished while on an outing with his troop in the Uinta Mountains, and he hasn't been seen since. Garrett was camping at Kuberant Lake with his father Kevin, along with 18 other scouts and 6 or 7 adult leaders. That morning, father and son had set off early to do some fishing. Like any boy his age, Garrett had gotten himself soaked. His shoes, socks, and pants were drenched. Wanting to warm up and change clothes, he told his dad he was heading back to their camp, just 250 feet up the trail. It was a short, familiar walk. They'd already made the trip several times. Kevin, assuming it would take just a few minutes, stayed behind to continue fishing. But when 20 minutes passed and Garrett still hadn't returned, Kevin grew uneasy. Leaving his fishing gear behind, Kevin walked back to camp, expecting to find Garrett changing clothes or chatting with the other boys. But he wasn't there. In fact, none of the other scouts had seen him either. The realization hit hard. Garrett had vanished without a trace. Panic quickly set in. Kevin raised the alarm and the search began immediately. What started as a small group of concerned adults rapidly turned into one of the largest search and rescue operations in Utah's recent history. Searchers combed the forested terrain on foot, on horseback, and even with tracking dogs, desperate to find any sign of the missing boy. As the sun set and darkness crept in, the urgency intensified. Helicopters flew overhead with infrared equipment. The rocky, heavily wooded landscape made the search especially difficult. Everyone was hoping Garrett had simply gotten lost and would soon be found curled up near a tree or walking back into camp. But as the hours turned into days, those hopes slowly faded. After days of searching, only one piece of evidence ever surfaced: a single Nike sock. It was found nearly half a mile from the lake, in a rough boulder field. Summit County Sheriff Dave Edmonds later said the sock looked like it had been pulled off a wet foot and then wadded up, consistent with Garrett's situation. Despite 9 days of relentless effort, the official search was called off. But Garrett's family and a loyal circle of volunteers refused to give up. They returned to the area regularly, searching until the snow fell in October. After the winter thaw, they resumed again. Still, no answers came. Over the years, Garrett's disappearance has been the subject of many theories. Some believe he may have been attacked by a wild animal, perhaps a mountain lion or bear. Others suspect abduction, suggesting a stranger or someone known to the family might be involved. Still, others wonder if he slipped, got injured, and couldn't make his way back for help. But with no solid evidence to support any of these ideas, the case remains an enigma. To this day, Garrett Bailey's story is a painful reminder of how quickly a moment can change everything. His disappearance not only devastated his family, but also captivated a community and inspired renewed awareness around child safety in the wilderness. Though years have passed and countless questions remain unanswered, one truth stands firm: Garrett's memory endures, and the search for answers continues. Chelsea Grimm, a 32-year-old woman from San Diego, California, vanished under puzzling circumstances during a cross-country road trip in late September 2023. What began as a routine journey quickly turned into a troubling mystery that continues to baffle her family, friends, and investigators alike. Chelsea left San Diego on September 24, 2023, with the goal of reaching Connecticut to attend a family wedding. Accompanying her on this trip was her beloved pet bearded dragon, Roz, also known as Roxy. She had originally planned to fly, but when the airline refused to allow her reptile on board, Chelsea opted instead to make the long drive across the country. On September 27th, Chelsea arrived in Phoenix, Arizona, where she met up with her sister and a friend. However, the next day, she unexpectedly canceled lunch plans with that same friend. Later that day, she was seen at a motel in Seligman, Arizona, trying to rent a room. Witnesses said she appeared confused and attempted to pay with euros rather than US dollars, an odd detail that left many unsettled. That evening, Chelsea contacted her parents from the motel. She explained that she wouldn't make it to the wedding after all. The road trip was taking longer than anticipated. Instead, she said she planned to camp nearby for a few days before heading back home to California. On September 28th, a police officer encountered Chelsea near a war memorial in Williams, Arizona. She had parked her car there and seemed emotionally overwhelmed after taking photos for a personal photography project honoring lost soldiers. She told the officer she didn't feel comfortable driving in her emotional state. The officer suggested a few safe places to camp, including the nearby Love's truck stop. 2 days later, on September 30th, a woodcutter reported seeing Chelsea near Ash Fork, Arizona. She was camping in her car and, according to the witness, didn't appear to be in distress or in need of help. But that would be the last confirmed sighting of Chelsea Grimm. On October 3rd, a group of hunters discovered her white 2019 Ford Escape SUV abandoned along Forest Service Road 6 in the Kaibab National Forest, northeast of Ash Fork. The vehicle had 2 flat tires. The following day, with no contact from their daughter, Chelsea's parents filed a missing person report with the Phoenix Police Department. Inside the vehicle, authorities found some of her belongings, including clothes and a camera. However, her wallet, phone, sleeping bag, and her pet bearded dragon were missing. The SUV was locked, and there were no signs of a struggle or foul play. There has been no activity on her bank account, cell phone, or social media since she disappeared. Despite a thorough investigation, Chelsea's case appears to have hit a dead end. With no solid leads, theories have emerged. Some believe she may have experienced a mental health crisis, especially given her confusion when trying to pay with foreign currency and the strange decision to leave her camera, an item she typically never parted with. Others speculate about a potential abduction, or that she fell victim to opportunistic criminals after her car became disabled. Another theory suggests she may have accepted help from someone with ill intentions. Determined to find answers, Chelsea's family hired a private investigator to assist in the search. Unfortunately, their efforts have yet to yield results. To this day, the fate of Chelsea Grimm remains a mystery. Her loved ones continue to hope for her safe return, holding on to any glimmer of hope that new information might emerge and bring her home.